You have two choices. You can either keep spending money, paying for extra tuition for your child, or fix the problem at the root, which is to encourage them to study Year 7 maths. Hello, welcome to Block 4, Place Value, Ordering Integers and Decimals, Lesson 6. I'll share my screen. So in today's lesson, you're going to learn to compare two numbers using equal, not equal, less than, and greater than. I want to mention that you should pay very close attention to these symbols because if you get to do computer programming, you're going to see these symbols. They are sometimes called relational operators or comparison operators. So you're learning something very interesting that you will use even in other fields of study. But before we start, I want to mention something to you. It is really important that you support the work we do. But just how can you support us? It is quite interesting that a lot of people are deriving value from these videos, but the subscriber numbers do not show that. So I want to ask for a huge favor. Click the subscribe button, click the notification bell so that when I release new videos, you will be notified, and like the videos. If you can do this, it is my promise to you that you will keep receiving high quality videos that educate your child or educate you if your child watching these videos. Thank you. Before we start, let us do some retrieval practice. Notice that the retrieval practice questions cover some of the topics we had done in our previous lessons, some of them quite a while ago. I would like you to pause the video and answer the questions in 3 minutes. Assuming you've paused the video and you've worked through these questions, here are the answers. Let's discuss them. So for the first question, you were asked to write down the number represented in the place value chart in figures. You can see here that we have 5 counters in the 100 millions column, and we have 1 counter in the 10 million column, and we have 4 counters in the million column. We have 6 counters in the 100,000 column. We have 2 counters in the 10,000 column, and we have 3 counters in the 1,000 column, 1 counter in the 100 column. Of course, you know, if you have watched the video of the previous lesson, you know that we use 0 as the placeholder there. And then we have 7 counters in the ones or the units column. So if we write this number out, it's going to be 514,623,107. Next, you were asked to write 42 million in figures. Remember, million has 6 digits after the number you call million. So 42 million will be 42 followed by 6 zeros. Then you were told to write the number in words. Okay, by now you should know how to write number in words. If you don't know how to do this, you can go and watch our previous lessons. Let's do some new learning. If I gave you these two numbers, how would you compare them? Well, Someone might say, we have fives in the tens column. That's one way to compare them. Another one, someone might say, these are two-digit numbers, so 59 is a two-digit number, and then 152 is three-digit number. Well, what if someone told you, for example, Amir, that 152 is bigger than 59, and then another person says 152 is greater than 59? Who is right? Is it Alex or Amir? Well, when someone says 152 is bigger than 59, what do they really mean? Do they mean that is bigger than because it has bigger than 59 because it has three digits, whereas 59 has two digits? Not quite. Could they be referring to something else? So the proper way to say it is this: 152 is greater than 59. Now, pay attention to these symbols. We're going to be using these symbols to compare numbers. So, remember, I said that we have these special names, we call them. Okay. So, there are other ones, but for year 7, you just need to know these. So, we can either call them relational operators. So, take note of this name. You're going to come across it when you do computer programming, such as Python programming, or some people call them comparison operators. Okay. Not only Python programming, you will see it in a lot of programming languages. Okay. So you'll come across this someday for those of you who want to move on to do some computing. Okay. So this is greater than, you can see it's the arrow pointing to the right. This is less than, this is equal to, and this is not equal to. Of course, not equal to makes sense. You just write equal to, and then you put a line through it to show that it's not equal. Okay. So if we want to write this, how would we say it? Of course, you know by now we'll use the word 152 is greater than 59. And what symbol would we use? Of course, we would put that symbol there. So this is a proper way to write 152 is greater than 59. What about this? We can also say it the other way around. We can say 59 is less than 152, and we can write it like this. Okay, I want you to have a think. How would you do this? Of course, you may have come up with something like this. 47 is less than 85, and then the less than sign is pointing to the left, and the greater than sign for 85, which is greater than 47, will be pointing to the right. Okay. Which number is greater? Sometimes you have very large numbers to compare. Now, you can use a place value chart to compare these numbers because it's what we have been using. So if we were to put these numbers in a place value chart, this is what we'll get. So for the first one, which is 2,300,040, we would have this. But for the other one, okay, of course, we're not going to have any digits for the 10 million and the 100 million column. For the other one, we're going to get this. So those are 0 placeholders. And of course, we have 2 counters for the 10 millions column. Now you can clearly see that this has to be greater than that, because 2 10 millions mean 20 millions. And then 2 million simply means 2 million. Of course, 20 lots of a million is bigger than 2 lots of a million. So we can simply say that that number, 23,400,000, is greater than 2,340,040. Okay, so far we have learned that you can use place value charts to figure out or to find out the place value of the different digits within a number so that you can use the correct relational operator. Okay, don't forget that name, to compare the numbers. Have a go at questions 1 to 3. So it's time for you to practice. Here is question 1. Pause the video and do question 1 for 2 minutes. You can take longer depending on your pace of working. Assuming you've paused the video and you've worked through the questions, here are the answers. Let's discuss them. So here, you're told to complete the statements using the correct phrase. So by now, you should know how to say greater than. So that's greater than sign, and these are less than signs. So we use the correct statements to complete these. That means not equal. All right, here is question 2. Pause the video and answer question 2 in 3 minutes. Assuming you've paused the video and you've worked through question 2, you've worked out at this, you've really thought about this, here are the answers. So by now, you should know how to use these symbols. So that is less than. So this number is less than that number. For B, this number is greater than that number. This number is greater than that number. This number is greater than that number. Okay. Here is question 3. You're being asked which is the greatest number in each pair. So you're comparing these pairs, the pairs for A and the pairs for B. Okay, assuming you've paused the video and you've worked through question 3, here are the answers. Of course, this pair, this is the greater one for this pair. So by just looking at it, you will see that this doesn't have any counters in the 100 millions column. So this number is clearly bigger. And then this one, although they have counters in the 100 millions, 10 millions, millions, and 100,000 column, you can write the numbers out if you cannot tell which is bigger, okay, which is greater than, okay, I should be using the correct word, which is greater than, you can write the numbers out before you compare them. But by visual inspection, although these look the same, you can see that this one has one more counter compared to that. So this should clearly be bigger than that. Okay. If we have numbers like this and we ask which of these numbers, are equal, well, you can write the numbers out from the place value chart and then compare it with the numbers that you will write by reading out the words. Okay, so by now you should be able to write numbers from when they are in figures, you should be able to write those numbers in a place value chart, and you also should be able to write those numbers in words. So when we do that, we'll find that this is 34,050. So these are clearly equal. They're the same numbers. This is 30,450. Okay. So they are equal, but these are not equal. So 34,050 is not equal to 30,450. What about these? If you have a question like this, have a think. Which digits can we put in here for this comparison to be right? Have a think. Well, if we want to compare the first digits, these digits, we'll clearly see that in the hundreds column, we have 6 here. Here, for this number to be bigger than that, because this is clearly saying this number here on the left is less than the number on the right, then these digits can be, of course, this is pointing that the 4s are the same. So we need to start comparing the hundreds column digits. We'll clearly see that these numbers can be 7, 8, or 9. Okay, but what if someone says, no, I want you to just look at the digits. We should make this second digit here to be 6. Of course, you will now say, well, the last digit has to be 0, because that's the only way we can say that number should be less than that. Okay, time for you to pause the video and have a go at the rest of the questions. But before you do, here is what we've learned so far. You've learned that you can use the place value chart to look at or to compare the digits, the values of the digits in a number, so that you can compare the numbers using the relational operators. Here are your questions. Pause the video and do questions 4 and 5 for 4 minutes. Assuming you've paused the video and you've worked through questions 4 and 5, here are the answers. For question 4, you're asked to write equal or not equal to complete the statements. By now, you should know how to use these symbols. So mark your work and celebrate your success if you did very well. If you didn't do very well, do not be discouraged. You can watch the video again and work through the question again. For question 5, you're asked to complete the part whole model and write greater than, equal, or not equal using these symbols to complete the statements. So by now you should know what a part whole model is. So these numbers, they are being split into their parts. Okay, so here are the answers. Okay, so for example, to find out what this number here is, you can simply just add them. Okay. Here are questions 6 to 9. Pause the video and answer questions 6 to 9 in 6 or 7 minutes. Assuming you've paused the video and you've worked through questions 6 to 9, I'm going to reveal the answers and we'll discuss them. So for questions 6 and 7, you were asked to fill the missing digits to make the statements correct. So you could use any digits to make these statements correct. So here, the number has to be less than the number on the right. Here, the number has to be less than the number on the right. Here, the number has to be greater than the number on the right. Here, the number has to be greater than the number on the right. And then for question 7, you were asked to write 5 numbers that are less than 50,200 but greater than 50,180. Of course, you should know how to do that using different digits. Here are the answers to question 8. So you were asked to write which of the statements are true and which are false, giving a reason for your answer. All right. Here you were asked A could be equal to B. Give a reason for each of your answers. So here is the answer. Question 9. The digits 0 to 9 are each used once in this statement. There are 5 missing digits. So you're required to use the digits to complete this statement. Well, you can have different solutions to this, but this is just one of them. Okay, that brings us to the end of this lesson. Remember, the topic for our lesson was to compare two numbers using these symbols: equal, not equal, less than, and greater than. Another name we found for these, they're called relational or comparison operators. We've learned so far that to be able to compare numbers, you need to think carefully about the place value of the digits in the numbers you're comparing. Until next time, take care and bye-bye.